Ah yes, Kung Fu Panda, that franchise where Jack Black plays a panda that ends up becoming the Dragon Warrior simply because they loved cooking noodles. If you didn't know this already, Jack Black recently announced the synopsis for Kung Fu Panda 4 at CinemaCon, and it's, well, slightly worrying, but at least we've got some Kung Fu Panda 4 news, right? Okay, before I get too dramatic, I should probably reveal the main plot line itself and what Jack Black actually announced at CinemaCon this year. According to various sources that reported of Jack Black's announcement at CinemaCon, this plotline will supposedly revolve around Poe searching for the next successor to the Dragon Warrior prophecy as well as the title. This supposed successor to the Dragon Warrior prophecy is going to be a fox bandit known as Zhen. Unfortunately, not much was revealed about Zhen's past by Jack Black. However, he will be instrumental in taking down the opponent known as the Chameleon, who has the dark ability to bring back warriors of the past. And it will be up to Zhen alongside Poe to take down the Chameleon and hopefully bring order and peace to China once more. Now, there are probably many other explanations for the plot that go into a little more detail, and I will leave my sources in the description of this video so you can check them out after watching this through, but I'm sure some of you can understand why I'm a little concerned about this plot. Okay, for simplicity's sakes, I'll try to keep this as simple as possible and try not to ramble too much. Obviously, this is all up to my own personal interpretation of how Kung Fu Panda as a movie franchise has progressed throughout years and the messages that are hidden within, so please, do take this with a grain of salt as well as share your own opinions about Kung Fu Panda as a franchise in the comments below. Okay, let's begin with Kung Fu Panda 1 and what made that movie so legendary. Our story begins with a humble noodle chef known as Poe, someone who admires the Furious Five as well as looks up to them alongside the entirety of the Jade Palace. Obviously, Poe is not too content with his profession as a noodle chef and dreams big, wishing to become a great kung fu master like the great Master Tigress. But to achieve that, he must first train in kung fu itself. Wishing to meet his heroes, and upon seeing a poster that advertises the election of the Dragon Warrior, so he ventures up the 1,000 steps in the hope of seeing his heroes. Unfortunately, fate happens to not be playing nice with him that day, and so he ends up locked outside of the palace gates, instead forced to find a new way to break in. Which is where Poe has this genius idea to launch himself up into the air with fireworks, creating a massive fireworks show before landing before the great Master Oogway, who proclaims that he is the Dragon Warrior to the surprise of everyone. Faced with this new responsibility, Master Shifu alongside the rest of the Furious Five reluctantly welcome him to the Jade Palace, subjecting him to the torture that happens to be the training hall as well as him dealing with his imposter syndrome, which comes about thanks to Master Tigress being relatively unwilling to welcome him to the Jade Palace, saying that he doesn't belong there, as opposed to Crane, who merely said that he didn't belong in his room. Faced with this predicament, as well as learning that he would eventually have to take on Tai Lung, Poe is forced to train alongside Master Shifu in a relatively unorthodox way to defeat the great Tai Lung. I must mention Tai Lung's significance here, considering he embodies the first step inside of Poe's ultimate journey, to embody physical strength and that training that will eventually lead him to become one of the greatest kung fu masters China has ever seen. This step not only embodies a massive part of kung fu training as a whole, but also embodies the fact that Tai Lung was mostly broken by Shifu's motivations, that he had to be the best, that he had to be the Dragon Warrior, that he didn't have to be Tai Lung, that he was the Dragon Warrior, that ends up making this movie so masterful. And it's that tragic upbringing that eventually leads to Tai Lung's demise at the hands of Poe. It's this beautiful difference yet parallel between their reaction to their responsibility that makes this movie even greater. Whilst Tai Lung was born with the responsibility of one day holding the Dragon Scroll, and therefore that made his failure much more pronounced and tragic, Poe merely fell down from the sky at an opportune time, unready to take on this responsibility, but under the right tutelage and training, was able to accomplish that and eventually defeat Tai Lung. Now, I know I've gone on much longer than I really needed to about Tai Lung in general and Kung Fu Panda, but please bear with me. I'm only going to use Kung Fu Panda 1 as an example just to keep this video short, but I'm sure you can tell by the amount of depth within Kung Fu Panda 1 as to why I'm slightly worried about Kung Fu Panda 4 in general and the fact that the plot doesn't really have as much depth to it. The entirety of Kung Fu Panda as a franchise so far has seen Poe go through the three main steps of training in Kung Fu. Those happen to be physical training, mental training, and spiritual training. And seeing that this plot will involve Po basically lacing up his boots and retire greatly concerns me about the Kung Fu Panda franchise as a whole. Now, it's time for what you actually came to this video for, and that's why I'm so worried about Kung Fu Panda 4 as a whole and why I fear for the franchise. And again, I ask you kindly to take this with a grain of salt, considering this is just my opinion and I'm not expecting this to go very far on YouTube or anything. This is just basically me getting this off my chest whilst remaining as composed and neutral as possible. Now, my main gripe with Kung Fu Panda 4 is the fact that it sounds like fan fiction. Now, I hear you there. I know there are some great individuals who have dedicated their time to creating Kung Fu Panda fan fiction, and their works are very much appreciated for expanding on the Kung Fu Panda universe, but please bear with me here. Now, inside of my previously established tangent, you can tell that there's so much depth alongside richness inside of Kung Fu Panda that makes it a truly unique movie, and that's just talking about the first one. Now, I don't want to get into a big ramble about the second and third one, because I'm pretty sure if you're watching this video, you already know how great those two movies are, but it's this lack of depth and seemingly the direction that makes me worry, not only for Kung Fu Panda in general, but DreamWorks as a movie studio. DreamWorks have admittedly been on a bit of a hot streak this past year by releasing The Bad Guys, which is critically acclaimed for its new animation style, as well as Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, a great refresher of the previously established Puss in Boots and Shrek franchises. So, when Jack Black, the literal voice of Po, walked onto stage donning a panda themed suit, I'm not gonna lie, seeing Jack Black attire that suit made me really excited. I was hoping for some sort of trailer or at least some sort of reveal for Kung Fu Panda 4, but no, we got this very vague plot that feels like a bit of a disappointment for the fact that so many people, myself included, have been hyped over Kung Fu Panda 4 for the past 7 years now. Now, I don't want to get entrenched within my own thoughts of doubt. I have hope that DreamWorks will eventually pull through and create something great out of this movie, but in my opinion, I personally see it as either unnecessary or at least not very vital to Po's actual training and journey as the Dragon Warrior. Personally, I feel like it's a little too soon for Po to be hanging up his boots, and even so, it feels like they're trying to attempt something similar to Puss in Boots: The Last Wish by delaying this movie so long to the point where they can make a retirement story out of it. Po is still brimming with potential for adventure, like he's only just become the master of the Jade Palace and now we're going to seriously believe that he's meant to be retiring. Maybe I'm just blinded with rose-tinted nostalgia for the original movies, but I don't see that as being the right decision, and that's just my opinion. And I don't think I'll be able to change anything at this point other than sharing it on the internet and maybe making a little bit of a controversial first video. Get that franchises have to eventually come to an end. I mean, look at Ice Age for example, that went on for way too longer than necessary. But I feel like it's just a little bit unnecessary for DreamWorks to start digging the grave of one of its beloved franchises so soon. There are many people out there, myself included, who are somewhat anticipating for DreamWorks to follow through with their 6-movie promise. This trifecta of other films has often been labelled the Master's Trilogy, often following up from the Student's Trilogy, which sees Po training from Kung Fu Panda 1 to Kung Fu Panda 3. However, I could be wrong about this, and therefore this may be the beginning of the Master's Trilogy. Unfortunately, it's a little bit too early to tell what the future of Kung Fu Panda is, but judging by the synopsis, it currently looks a little bit bleak. But judging by DreamWorks' 2022 release schedule and how they absolutely took the world by storm with their new Spider-Verse inspired animation style, therefore I have some optimism that the trailer for Kung Fu Panda 4, when it is inevitably released, will squash some of my worries and bring my mind to ease once again. As for now, only time can tell, and I've chosen to voice some of my worries for the current synopsis of Kung Fu Panda 4. And on that note, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day, as well as may the cosmos shine upon you. Take care, bye bye!